welcome to the Wellness on Purpose podcast. If you're new here, our intention is to provide you with impactful, educational, and realistic information to help you progress on your journey to live wellness on purpose now and for future generations. My name is Marissa Laughlin. I'm a holistic nutritionist and your host for this podcast. For the month of May, we are focusing on how to naturally and safely cleanse the body using whole foods and herbal remedies. We have asked Dana Remedios, who is a holistic nutritionist and a part of the product information department at Flora Health, to join us on today's podcast. In this episode, we are going to be talking about the different ways in which the body detoxifies and cleanses, the importance of detoxifying on a regular basis, who should and should not cleanse, and why it is incredibly important to make sure that you're having regular bowel movements before starting any cleanse. So without further ado, let's welcome Dana onto the podcast and jump right into this lovely topic of naturally and safely cleansing with herbs. Good morning, Dana. How are you today?
I'm doing great today. Thank you, Marissa. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to feature you and Flora on our podcast and give our listeners some incredibly great information about Flora and spring cleansing. So let's dive right in. And how about you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, and also about Flora as a company that you are working with.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I appreciate being here. So nice to meet you, listeners. I'm Dana Remedios, and I'm a Vancouver-based registered holistic nutritionist and a coach. And I have a real passion for everything to do with plant medicines and empowering people to really transform their health and, in doing so, their lives. A lot of the time, I look at health education as a way of helping people to improve their health and their relationships with themselves. And I do a lot of writing, a lot of which is done through Flora's product information department where I work. And it's mostly focused on educating people that are within the company, like our own representatives, and also others in the health industry who want to know more about our products when they're representing them to customers.
That's amazing. So some of our listeners right now will recognize Flora as a name because you guys have been in the health and wellness industry for years. But for our listeners who maybe have no idea who Flora is, can you elaborate a little bit more on the company?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Flora is a family-owned and operated company, and they have been really have a history in the health industry for multiple generations, which is really, really neat. And our owner, Thomas Greither, is a lifelong vegetarian. He's got some really strong ethics, and he brings those to the company, and they really help to give us a direction. So we have had a lot of really cutting edge products that have been made for vegetarians since well before that was popular. So I think it was the first vegan, algae-based DHA product on the market. We've had age-specific probiotics since I think before anyone else. That was our one of the things that we came out with. And also just omegas in general, like plant-based omegas, like flax oil done in a very careful way. These are all things that we're really proud of. And of course, fluorescence, which we're going to talk about today, which is a whole body cleanse product that we've been making since the early 90s.
Amazing. Yes, I will just jump right into talking about the fluorescence because for the month of May, we are talking about the importance of cleansing and detoxifying the body using natural herbs as well as different foods that can help to support those detoxification processes. So for today, I want to talk about the importance and the benefits of detoxing and how you can effectively and safely do that with herbal remedies. So can we start by really getting to the basics and the simple way in which detoxification actually happens in the body? Because a lot of people see detoxification as a negative, and there is some controversy around detoxifying. So can we just start by telling our listeners what detoxing even means?
Yes, for sure. So I think there is some justified skepticism, as you brought up, around detoxing. And that's because the body's already set up to detoxify. It does have organs that help to detoxify, which is just another way of explaining breaking down on a chemical level things into less toxic components that can be ridded of by the body. So there is an argument that this is what our livers and kidneys do, and that's true, but it's only a partial truth. That's part of the issue. Another potential reason that people might resist the idea of detoxification is that there are some other types of products that they may have tried before or that may have heard of that cause a lot of cramping or bathroom emergencies that can be quite harsh. When they, do these sort of force the colon to cleanse out or that kind of thing. And that can be pretty problematic. So I think those are really valid issues that need to be addressed. And we also need to explain better to people what the body's actually doing in terms of its detoxing and where the gaps are.
Yes. So I see the terms detoxing and cleansing be used a lot interchangeably. Is there a difference between these two processes, or are they the same thing?
Holistic nutritionists like myself have to be more mindful of always interchangeably using the words. They are two different processes that occur in the body naturally. And they can also, we sometimes use the word detox as a noun, like something you can have or do. So I'll just clarify that. The two body processes, detoxing and cleansing, are always happening on a continuous basis. Detoxification, again, is the chemical process. It takes place in the liver where toxins are broken down. And then because they're changed into a different form, the body can get rid of them or cleanse them out. And that removal of those wastes and toxins from the body happens via our organs of elimination, which we know as our bowel, our urinary system, things like that. So detoxification, it specifically refers to a transformation process in the liver where chemicals are altered for removal. It can happen in a 3-step transformation process, 2 of which are commonly understood. And in the medical field, they may also, just to complicate things, use the word detox to mean eliminating substances from the body, like when you're breaking down chemicals when you have a dependence and people are in recovery. So there's also just that, or if people have been having an acute case of toxicity. But we're generally more speaking in the natural health realm of more chronic cases of intoxication that people need to work on. So cleansing naturally follows detoxification. It's the removal of all these things from the body. When you go to the bathroom, you're cleansing. When you're sweating, you're cleansing. It's coming out of the body. And some people call this drainage because it's like having drain pipes that you need to unblock and channels that you need to open so this stuff will flow out.
So what happens if those channels are blocked and you can't eliminate effectively?
That's a great question. So if you couldn't eliminate things effectively because your channels were blocked, you probably would feel pretty crummy. So that does happen quite often. People do get constipated or they're dehydrated and they're not urinating enough. And so their toxins either aren't diluted enough or they're not exiting the body quickly enough. And when that happens, you're going to get a headache, potentially, or just feel fatigued. Sometimes it starts to come out through the skin. And because it's so concentrated, that results in a rash that people don't know the cause of, for example. So there can be a lot of things that can happen in those cases.
Yes, for sure. And kind of to put the first question I asked about the negative perception around detoxing and the effectiveness of detoxing and cleansing, how they're mutually beneficial to each other. Do you think that our bodies are incapable of doing a regular detoxification, or do you think that they do require supplements to make this detoxification process to be efficient and effective?
Well, there are so many different small reactions happening to take part in that. So different types of chemicals need different types of processes. There are things like enzymatic conjugation, there's methylation, there's sulfation, and these are all processes that help to break down different types of compounds in the body. So if you take, a medicine, or if you get exposed to air pollution, you may have different pathways that break those down. And we also just use, in general, a lot of antioxidants to just combat oxidation, which is often a side effect of the detoxification process in the liver. So what that means is if you're missing any of the components that affect those processes, you may incompletely detoxify. Or inefficiently detoxify. So you'll still be doing something, But there are many factors that impact the efficiency of how well you're doing it, of breaking down and altering those compounds. So, dependent on a lot of things, like your genetic individuality may make you very good at methylating or not very good at methylating. And then a lot of these are nutritionally dependent variables. So if you have no sulfur in your diet, then you can't carry out sulfation, for example, and that would clearly impact your ability to break down compounds that are broken down through sulfation. And if you don't eat enough folate and you're not eating enough leafy greens, or you're not eating other sources of folate, you don't eat oranges, then you're not going to be able to methylate very well, and then you wouldn't be able to carry out all of those processes that are dependent on methylation, which is an enormous number of processes. And if you don't have antioxidants, you might not be able to fight free radicals. And so eventually there will be, results of all of this, negative results.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it goes to show that most definitely a healthy, balanced diet will support the body and help it detoxify on a regular basis. But we know that there are so many other contributing outside factors that can cause toxicity through the body. So what are some signs and symptoms that our listeners could identify that could indicate that their body may need to go through a detoxification support?
That's a great question. So if people are not feeling well, that could be something that gives them pause and makes them take a look at what might be going on. But also, you can just look at your lifestyle, because in a perfect world, you'd have all these nutrients and you wouldn't need supplements to make sure they're carried out. But most of the time, if you look at your diet, you'll see there are gaps. It's just that if you're not a nutritionist, you might not know specifically what those gaps are. Of course, eating what you think is a healthy and balanced diet is probably a really good start and will supply a lot of those nutrients. And there are some really basic ones that help with the cleansing side of things, like fiber and water. So if in your lifestyle you're not drinking a lot of water and you're not eating a lot of fiber-rich, vegetables and whole grains, then you may not be cleansing very well, and that might show up as you're not pooping every day. And if you're not pooping every day, that's a big problem. And so if you just sit a lot, things might also be stagnating in your body. You're not really helping the lymph to move. And so that might also require some support. So those are more lifestyle related factors. In terms of symptoms that you would look for, like we were mentioning before, the headaches are a really common one, but body aches as well, or just sore parts. Sometimes brain fog and just mental inability to concentrate, fatigue. Those are really common. But another really big issue that we're facing as a society is just an overall infertility problem. If you can't get pregnant, that can be a symptom too. So anything that's affecting hormones, like toxins that might be in your body, could have impacts on things like sperm count, your mood, your appetite. It could cause acne, and if it affects your thyroid, it may make you feel really cold. So all of this is possible because there are chemicals called obesogens that can impact your hunger and satiety hormones. And that can certainly be a sign, if you've got dysregulated appetite, that you might have some toxicity.
Absolutely. And I would love to expand actually a little bit more on the daily bowel movements, because I think a lot of people, I know in my practice, when I talk about bowel movements with people and I say, you have to have at least one a day, it's almost like a shock that's like a minimum amount. It's like, no, 2, 3, that's healthy. But a lot of people are primarily constipated, or they are suffering with IBS symptoms where it's alternating between constipation, but it's still not regular or a formed bowel movement. So just a reminder to our listeners right now, having a bowel movement at least every day is incredibly important just to keep the body functioning optimally day to day. Now, especially when we're talking about cleansing right now, if you are somebody who's struggling with constipation, this is something that is not necessarily going to benefit you in terms of reducing your toxic overload, because there's nowhere for your toxins to go if you're not having regular bowel movements. So fiber is incredibly important, and water, to keep that moving and staying regular as well. So I want to just jump actually into what you talked about in terms of hormones as well, because something that affects the hormones a lot that you brought attention to was toxic molecules. So where are toxins coming from? Like, how are people ingesting or touching or coming into contact with toxins?
Well, even if you go to the grocery store and you buy all organic fruits and vegetables, when you grab the receipt to go home, it's all over the receipt, right? And that's BPA that we're quite familiar with. There are a lot of places where we come into contact with toxins, and um, you know, they originated at the end of the Second World War, where we created a lot of these chemicals for war, and then we had to repurpose them to do other things. So we decided, okay, we're going to repurpose them to spray them on use them as agricultural chemicals, or there was also a boom in new industry development, like the plastics industry, and now it's ubiquitous that plastics are absolutely everywhere. And again, even when you're grocery shopping for your organic broccoli, it might come in a plastic bag. So you really have a hard time avoiding these things. There are, since the end of the last World War, we have had a 34-fold growth in chemicals, and we haven't, increased our ability to detoxify those chemicals by the same percentage. Like, it's just, we haven't changed in one generation enough to keep up with it. And so that's really the problem. But these chemicals might be in things that you have decided not to touch in a number of years, but they're still in your body as well. So we have to think about things that maybe we don't do anymore, like microwave things in saran wrap or plastic wrap anymore. But we may have done so, as when we were younger, and we may have used a lot more of the types of products that we're no longer using with artificial sweeteners and things like that, that even if you haven't had those for a number of years, those artificial sweeteners are very, very hard for the body to break them down. So oftentimes they're still sequestered away in the body and accumulating.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us back to actually the first point we were talking about in terms of detoxifying being kind of controversial, because there is many conversations that I've had with my clients and in Joanne's place, and I'm sure it's been the same for you, Dana, is that people will pull up, information about how the body can detoxify, on its own, which we already said that is absolutely true. But as you mentioned, the years of accumulation of toxins has been substantial, like the amount of toxins that you come into contact with and that accumulate in the body. So the body hasn't become the super powered body that can eliminate these toxins as fast as we're coming into contact with. And that's what we need to think about when we're talking about detoxifying and cleansing the body, is removing that burden that's either been built up for such a long period of time, or the fact that we are being exposed to so many toxins in such a short amount of time that we need the support from herbs, which we'll talk about in a minute, or other cleansing methods to enhance that detoxification process and eliminate them from the system.
Absolutely, Marissa. Yeah, absolutely. And I think in addition to there just being a lot of different chemicals out there, yes, there is some science showing how the body breaks chemicals down. That's true. There's also a lot of science showing that toxins do accumulate. There's a lot of science showing that they do get sequestered in our fat cells, because this is one way that the body keeps us safe. If it can't break something down, because it's never seen it before, it's a man-made chemical that the body wasn't built to detoxify, then it will use fat cells to sequester these chemicals away. And in some cases, while they're in the body, they're triggering a response. And this gets them the nickname obesogen, because it makes the body react by creating more fat cells in order to hide these chemicals away. And it can even increase our feelings of hunger. So they can cause us to put on more body fat so that we can hold more of these toxins safely, because it's a way of padding them and keeping them out of general circulation where they're not going to do as much harm. But, that does endanger, because that's oftentimes the kind of fat that is right around the liver. This is what we call visceral fat, which is more dangerous for our health. And so I think that there's that, which has been proven, which is something that I think a lot of people, maybe they're not finding that research, but it definitely exists. And then the other thing is, It's not just that we have all these chemicals. It's just that they're studied individually for their toxicity, and we don't look at how they overlap and the exponential effects of having them all layered upon each other and how much worse that is for our health and how that affects our DNA and everything else.
Yes, that's huge, and that's what's very challenging about some of these studies is it's very one way, or it's very one side driven. So I know as a nutritionist and working in the health and wellness industry is you're going to naturally become more familiar with where these toxins are coming from, how to naturally detoxify them, how to eliminate them or reduce them. But for our listeners, what are some ways that they can reduce their exposure to toxin burden when they're not necessarily aware of where all these toxins are coming from?
Great. So eat lower on the food chain. It's great to have a balanced diet. You can get plant-based protein or animal-based protein, but if you do eat animal-based protein, choose things that are lower down in the food chain. So if you still eat seafood, then choose small fish, things like, mackerel or herring or sardines are going to be better than tuna, something, or halibut, something very large. That's going to be safer for you. Things bioaccumulate. So the bigger animals that eat the littler animals have more toxicity. And that's the same with mammals. So if you eat beef, it's more likely to be a source of toxicity because it's a bigger animal. It's just eating a lot. So you want to make sure that what it's eating is organic. So maybe it's eating grass. That's going to be healthier than if it's eating grains, for example. So you should be seeking out that grass-fed and potentially organic meat whenever possible. Same thing with chicken and things like that. So that's probably one easy thing to just keep in mind. Eat lower down on the food chain. And then in terms of what you breathe, you want to make sure you're not bringing the toxins into your home with perfumed products. So pretty much anything that's perfumed is a potential toxin, unless it's 100% only from natural essential oils. You do have to be careful of anything that has perfume. It usually means that there's phthalates, or almost always means that there's phthalates, which is a toxin. So just don't use perfumed cleaning products really at all, in terms of how you do your laundry, how you clean your home, all of that. It's really helpful in your toiletry products as well to eliminate that as much as possible. The things that we're using, if you can choose natural materials like bamboo, for utensils, if you need something portable to take with you for lunch, bamboo is nice and light and easy. And your lunch containers can be made out of, aluminum if glass is too heavy. But you want to avoid those plastics as much as you can, especially if you've got little ones and you want them to have something that's not breakable. You can give them little aluminum cups and bamboo cutlery, and they won't be able to break it, but it'll be one way to get the plastic out of their mouths. So, eliminating plastics is probably one of the biggest ones for sure.
Yeah. And actually, one thing that I've really tried to focus on this past year for myself in reducing toxic exposure is actually, like you said, natural fibers. So clothing has been a huge transition for me in this last year. Now, I'll say for our listeners, this might seem very overwhelming because there is toxins in every area of your life, your food, your water, the air quality, the products that you're using to clean your house, to clean your body. There's so many areas that you can always improve on. So for me, I just noticed that, there was a lot of clothes that, I'm someone who does like to thrift, but there's a lot of companies that are now coming out with either certified organic cotton or linens or bamboo, different types of materials that are having less of a toxic burden on the body. And that's something I think people don't even think about is their clothes and the fabrics that they're using in that sense.
Absolutely. I think that's really, really a good point because it's right in contact with your skin, just like a toiletry product.
Absolutely. So, on a professional standpoint, would you say that it's better to take a whole body approach for detoxifying, or would you think it's better to target one specific organ? An example would be like start with the liver.
I think that we're taught that the organ is incredibly important and that it absolutely needs support for us to be in our best state of health. And that's completely true. But that doesn't mean that we want to isolate the liver. It's important to both cleanse and to detoxify so that toxins get broken down and then quickly cleared. And so to do this, we have to be supporting both of those systems at once. And that means multiple organs at once. So we do need to kind of engage them all together so that nothing's stagnating. And of course, Flora makes some beautiful products that do whole body cleansing. So I am a little bit biased on that. But I do think that even if we weren't looking at products and just looking at supporting with food or lifestyle, you definitely want to always think of the body as a holistic unit and not just the sum of its parts, because there's so much evidence showing that what's happening in one area is affecting somewhere else, such as our new understanding of how much the gut impacts the brain and all of that. So I do always look at the body as a whole and support it, all at one time. I think in terms of the detoxification process, it's a lot more comfortable for most people. So it can be really a bit of a surprise and an unfortunate shock to realize how much of a body burden we have and the toxins that we're carrying. And if we process those out of one place into another place too quickly, more quickly than the body can keep up with, and more quickly than we can, the urinary system or the intestinal system can get rid of it, then we will feel bad. And then we might not want to continue on with our detoxification. We might be too tired or have a migraine. We won't be able to carry on with our day-to-day activities too. So it'll really impact us. Often if you see that someone's, got a rash or some other kind of symptom like that, it means that it wasn't able to get out of the body quickly enough. And it might mean that you're actually even reabsorbing some toxins. So you're really not working, you're kind of working against yourself in that way.
So in regards to the Flora Fluorescence, that's the product I want to talk about today, and the recreated formula with the addition of the turkey tail and turmeric. But let's start by talking about the Flora Fluorescence product, because this is a whole body supporting detoxification product. It's been around for a long period of time. I know in Joanne's place, it's one of our top selling detoxification products because it can be used for gentle and then also for a little bit deeper. So I'll let you talk about that, but how about we start by talking about what even the Fluorescence product is?
Yeah, thank you. So Fluorescence comes to us via the Ojibwa people of the Algonquin region of Ontario, and they have a long tradition of herbal medicine and some really great traditional knowledge. And knowledge keepers there have some really great traditions with plants, and also a tradition of being very generous. So this has been passed down, from person to person to us because of that generosity, where they shared this list of 8 organic herbs, of course, grown at the time, just naturally organic, and now grown specifically to be certified organic. And these great 8 herbs are burdock root, sheep sorrel herb, rhubarb root, slippery elm bark, blessed thistle herb, red clover flower, watercress, and kelp. And we extract them all just using water so that it mimics the way the Ojibwe would have been preparing it as a tea.
So using that 8 herb combination, what exactly are they doing to support the body to promote a detoxification process?
Sure. So they all work together, and the Ojibwa believe that there's a unified spirit that happens when plants work together. They become more than the sum of their parts, and they become a synergistic whole. So to break down what they're doing individually, though, which we do know that there are 43 different polyphenol compounds in the formula coming from all these different herbs, and they all work together. The burdock root is diuretic and stimulates the kidneys. But if you've ever eaten burdock, you'll know it's also got a natural bitterness. And that's a good thing because it stimulates bile production and digestion. So even though you don't taste it too much in the formula, it's really helping to do that. And it also supports the lungs and the liver and the intestines. And so the burdock root, and the slippery elm bark are both mucilaginous, which just means they're kind of slimy, to be honest. They have this fiber to them, which is actually very soothing and can coat the intestinal tract. And that can be very helpful for promoting nice, easy elimination. And then sheep sorrel has been identified as a really important herb in this formula. It's known as an alterative. And I don't mean alternative, I do mean alterative. And what that means is it can change things for the better. And so it helps the body cells to alter themselves towards health. It helps them to eliminate broken components, damaged cell material, unhealthy parts of the cell more effectively so that the cells stay healthier. And then rhubarb root is a very astringent and kind of a gentle laxative. So it helps to tone the body. And blessed thistle, it is a type of thistle, and it's a relative of the milk thistle. And this is a great liver rejuvenator, just like milk thistle. Red clover, the common flowers that you see, it actually helps to flush the urinary system out. It's a good diuretic. And watercress, you might know that you could, maybe find this at Joanne's place to include into your salads and things like this. It's one of the most nutrient-dense plants we've ever found. So it's included for that wide array of trace minerals and everything else that it has. And finally, kelp. It has alginates because it is this sea green, and it is able to kind of gel or bind up to certain things, maybe helping unwanted minerals to be eliminated from the body.
Amazing. So really that touches, every detoxification process needed for that to happen through the body. So this has been a tried and true product for so many years, but Flora has recently come out with another formulation with the addition of turkey tail and turmeric. So can you tell us maybe what the difference is and why those two ingredients were added into this formulation?
Yes, thanks so much. So it is based on the original fluorescence. So it does have all the 8 herbs in their original dosages, which is amazing. And we didn't want to change the original because a lot of people just love that. They don't want to, like you said, it's very popular as it is. But along with all the toxicants that people are dealing with, there's this other epidemic that's starting to become more and more, obvious, which is that people are inflamed. They have a lot of gut disruption. They have these other kind of chronic or more complex problems, along with just having toxins that they're dealing with. And this product, with the addition of the turkey tail mushroom and the turmeric extract, it could go a little bit further for these folks that need more protection and support for their cells, for their immune systems, just managing overall inflammation, fostering good gut health. So if anyone thinks they need just a little bit of extra support in those areas, they're still going to get the cleansing benefits that you would get from fluorescence. But now these newer ingredients bring these additional benefits.
So turkey tail, I think that some of our listeners may not know even what this is. So can you elaborate on this ingredient?
Yes, it's actually a polypore mushroom that grows on trees and fans out in the shape of a turkey tail and has similar coloring. And so turkey tail is a medicinal mushroom. It is a source of fungal polysaccharides. It has been used in traditions all over the world for hundreds of years. And it has immune modulating properties as well as prebiotics, the stuff that feeds your probiotics. And so turkey tail has these a wide array of different helpful compounds, phenolics, we call them. There's at least 35 different ones in the turkey tail mushroom, including quercetin, which some of your listeners might be familiar with, and another less familiar one called bacillane.
So both of these ingredients, the turkey tail and the turmeric, are used to support the body during the detoxification process by reducing inflammation and then also supporting the immune system as well, correct?
Yeah, so turkey tail and turmeric have a lot of clinical evidence behind them. So it definitely supports vitality and not just the cleansing process, but also they give additional antioxidants to protect the cells and tissues from damage during that process and supporting healthy inflammation levels. So basically, we know that all disease processes involve some kind of inflammation. And turkey tail has also got some really great research behind it now and some really unique compounds for the immune system.
So for our listeners, some of them may be using the fluorescence regularly, and this is a new product to them with the added turkey tail and turmeric. So even if it's a new listener or someone who's used this product before, how would someone decide which formulation would be better for them?
All right. Well, some people don't necessarily want to try something new when they found something that works for them, especially if they're very, very sensitive. And so if someone is super sensitive and they kind of just want to stick with fluorescence, or they just love the whole history of fluorescence and they're committed to it, absolutely, go ahead. If they think that they want the bonus effects of some additional antioxidant protection, some additional inflammation modulation, and or they have a reason to need immune support. I mean, that could be anyone. At this particular time in our history, it could be just about anyone that wants more immune support. But in that case, they could go for fluorescence with the addition of the turkey tail and turmeric. It's also something you can use as an adjunct to chemotherapy and radiation. So people have used fluorescence, during those types of treatments as well. But this one has the turkey tail, which has some great clinical evidence for being supportive during that time and improving outcomes for people if they are doing chemo or radiation. So that would be, one example of a time that you might want to choose the one with the additional turkey tail and turmeric.
Okay. And how often do you think that people should be detoxifying their body using the fluorescence or the fluorescence with turkey tail and turmeric?
Our answer on that is almost always to tune into the body and get a sense for yourself of what you need and really make a choice based on how you're feeling. Certainly, some of us carry a greater body burden than others. If you work in a beauty salon and have for many, many years, that can have a real impact on your health. There's a lot of different chemicals in those situations. Same things if you're working in, extractive industries. Those are often great sources of exposure. But, most people, they tend to fall into a routine that works for them. They do a cleanse at the change of every season, or sometimes they prefer, just spring and fall, for example. And then they have this routine for their spring and summer cleansing where they do a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables and cold foods and salads. And then maybe during their fall and winter cleanse, they're going to incorporate a lot of broth or soup or that kind of thing. And it becomes a ritual for them. They might time it with equinox or solstice. And then other people are a little more, whenever they feel like it, you pick up a bottle and do a cleanse. And some people prefer to just integrate it into their daily routine. So they do it more like a tonic. They do a low dose, maybe before breakfast once a day. And maybe not, doing the full dose twice a day, but that just helps them to keep up with everyday exposure. Maybe they live in a big city with the air quality is not the best or whatnot. Or some people do it just because they find that it helps them to stay regular and to feel their best and to sleep well. So they like to just, have a little bit all the time. And it's really gentle when you do it that way as well.
So when you're doing it, the low dose once a day, that is something you can continue on for a regular period of time, and that's safe for an individual to do that, correct?
Daily use is safe. As with any supplement, I think it's good to come off for a while, check in with your body, see am I still benefiting from this? How does this feel? And then, go back on if you feel like you were benefiting from it. But yeah, absolutely. That's true.
So for people who are doing this more as a full detoxification process, can you just tell our listeners what the dosage they would be taking to have that detoxification process be active?
Right. So oftentimes people will do twice a day because that's convenient with their daily routine. If you're working from home right now, this poses a great opportunity to fit in a third dose, which is also fine, especially if you feel the need to transform something in your health. You might want that third dose. Like you could do 3 tablespoons 3 times a day, for example, for a deeper cleansing process. Otherwise, twice a day is usually adequate. During that time, you should just eat normally, live your normal life. But if you have a very intense, fast-paced life and you don't eat well and you don't normally drink water, then you might want to at least kind of take a look at that during this time because drinking enough water, eating well, and getting enough rest while you're doing the cleanse is a good idea.
Absolutely. Like we said at the beginning, like you've got to have that daily bowel movement maintained and regular. Otherwise, a detoxification process is not going to be beneficial because those toxins don't have anywhere to go. So you've got to make sure that I know you don't really necessarily have to change your diet to be something specific, but definitely when you're doing something like this, you've got to increase your fiber, and that would be through lots of vegetables. Some whole grains could do that as well, and then lots of water for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any side effects that may happen during this detoxification process using these products?
So it's possible if a person has more stored toxins than they expected, or perhaps they're very depleted in nutrients, some of the nutrients that are needed for the detoxification process, they might end up feeling very tired, very weak while they are cleansing. That is possible. Sometimes people feel headachy or potentially even nauseous, but generally people don't experience any side effects. So there shouldn't be anything expected. But if any of these things happen, then we usually just say, slow down and reduce the amount that you're taking. So either if you're taking it 3 times a day, you might want to reduce that. You might want to go to just once a day until whatever it is passes, like a bit of nausea or something, and drink some more water to help flush it from the body. Usually that can help it to pass. Or you can use, instead of water, you can use something like a mineral-rich broth to replace some of the electrolytes. That can help you to kind of perk back up. And additionally, it's a good time again to rest and relax, because the body also doesn't really repair, regenerate, and cleanse itself very well when you're not in what's called a parasympathetic state, which is just a relaxed state essentially. So make sure that you give yourself a chance to relax if you're feeling some side effects.
Absolutely. And is there anyone who should not take this product?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend the product during pregnancy or if you're breastfeeding. Neither product of the two would be good for pregnancy, breastfeeding, or childhood, because cleansing is it's a process of breaking everything down and ridding the body of things. It's catabolic. And so boosting that process during a building up season of your life, like, early childhood or pregnancy, it's not a good fit. And you also don't want to force toxins from the body into breast milk. So, not appropriate when breastfeeding. And I think it makes a lot of sense that you just don't want to use either product if you know that there's something in there that you're allergic, or you're allergic to something in the family of those plants. Additionally, both of these have diuretic properties. They're like tea concentrates. So if you know that you don't tolerate teas that are diuretic, or you've been told not to take diuretic products, then I wouldn't take them. But it's best to just read the bottle. There are potentially some counterindications for you if you have blockages to your pathways of elimination. So if you have kidney stones or gallstones, that kind of thing, or a bowel obstruction, then you may not want to take it. So additionally, because it's diuretic, if you don't regulate well your blood pressure or your just water levels in your body, or you're taking a water pill for a condition like a heart condition or a kidney condition or diabetes, then those would be reasons that you might want to avoid these products. But I would just read the bottle.
Okay, great. And is there anything that our listeners should do to prepare before starting this type of detoxification process?
Well, like you were focusing on quite a bit, I think it's really important that people are pooping well. So once a day at minimum, and that's happening, because those pathways, the cleansing pathways, the elimination organs need to be working so that when things are broken down more quickly, they exit rapidly. So you don't need to follow a special diet, but you do need to fuel those processes with enough water. It could be herbal tea. It could be foods that are very rich in water. So fruit is a good example. Soup, again, is great. Anything that will also have fiber, like your vegetables, anything that helps the body to get rid of the toxins once they're loosened up is really helpful. So we don't necessarily want anyone to be fasting. Again, cleansing and detoxification, especially detoxification, are nutrient dependent, energy dependent processes. So you do want to make sure you have enough energy and nutrients to fuel that, along with the products, which are going to be enhancing it. And if they want, they can contact us at info@florahealth.com. We've got handouts for, food ideas for them. We have some recipe ideas for, anyone who's really keen they do want to do a change to their diet or something. That they don't have to, but we can certainly help them to do that if they'd like.
Absolutely. That's great. I just have one more question for you. Can you just speak to the importance of sleep during a detoxification process?
Oh, absolutely. So sleep is so, so important for our immune health and for our cleansing processes, for our mental health. It's, I think, unfortunate that in our society we tend to cut it short, and that seems to be a badge of honor. I'm glad that that's shifting and that people are now, aware that it's great to get not just 7.5 or 8 hours of sleep, but good quality, deep, restful sleep as well. So I certainly know, again, that like shifting into what we call like a rest and digest state and not your fight or flight state, by contrast, is important for really all of the processes that the body needs to carry out for you to help you to heal and repair. And sleep is the deepest one of these rest and repair states. So do try and relax and get a good night's sleep each night. It can also help to kind of set the body's internal clock so that you do, help yourself fall asleep at night by getting out first thing in the morning, maybe looking at the sunshine or, getting active in the morning. That can help your body to be ready for sleep after dark as well. So can start in the morning, but if you have a chance to, get the electronics out of your bedroom, make sure it's really nice and dark and cool and relaxing for you, and prioritize your sleep, I think that it'll really benefit you.
Absolutely. That's so great. So obviously we've covered a lot of information in this podcast today. Thank you so much, Dana. To really sum up for our listeners, I think what's really important here to know is that using Flora Fluorescence products, whether it's their original or their new formulation with the added turkey tail and turmeric, it's very safe for pretty much everyone to use it, except for the indications that Dana had mentioned. But really, let's make sure that the bowels are moving, that you're hydrated, you're getting nutrients to support yourself through a detoxification process. And you can take this opportunity to make it as gentle as you want or as more in depth as you want as well too. So for more information, you can always pop onto the Flora website, but you can also visit us in store because we have lots of information to continue to provide to you to support your detoxification process. So thank you so much, Dana, for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and all of your information. It's been such a pleasure.
I really appreciate you having me on the podcast. I've really enjoyed all of your episodes, and I think that you're doing a really great job with the podcast. And it was a pleasure to be on here with you today. Thanks so much.
Thank you everyone for tuning in for today's episode. You guys know what to do here. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you do not miss any notifications when a new episode is dropped. And be sure to share on social media that you're listening to the Wellness on Purpose podcast.